morning. We're going to go ahead and begin. Thank you all for joining us here. I am Shane Harris, the president and founder of the People's Association of Justice Advocates. I am joined here by one of my senior advisors, Sybil Thompson, who is to my left, and a number of other members of my team. Before I get started, I just want to indicate the speaker list and folks who are going to be speaking in support of my proposal today to the San Diego City Council and to the mayor. And I just want to note that my proposal is the only proposal, counter proposal, to the mayor, to the council, and to the process that they are taking today. My proposal is the only proposal being in the city record and specifically being discussed today at the closed session meeting. And I just want to indicate that my office did a lot of work on this proposal. And I also want to indicate that I'm the only person outside of government to tour this building behind me. So just so I can lay some ground so people understand the work that has been done. I'm joined today by Dan Mullen, who's a Middletown resident, Ed Moore, who's a Middletown resident supporting this proposal, Tricia Fillet, who is an Old Town resident and member of the Old Town Safe and Clean Committee, who is supporting the Harris proposal, Kate Callan, North Park resident, who is supporting the Harris proposal from District 3, and Brian Gooden from District 4, Southeastern San Diego, who is supporting the Harris proposal. And I just want to indicate something that I think we all know. Speaker Johnson has the hardest job in America, to bring together all different sides of the table and people who disagree on various opposing sides regarding certain issues. And in the same way that he has to caucus regularly every day to try to bring people together is the same way that I had to caucus with my team to bring all kinds of different sides together. But I want to thank a champion for the people and someone who has worked closely with me to get this done and build consensus around my proposal, Sybil Thompson. Thank you so much for your leadership. Here's the fact. The fact is that we all can disagree about strategy. I mean, we can all disagree about the approach that we want to take. The fact is that we can all have different perspectives about how we see the use of this property behind me and the overall homeless issue in our city. But the fact is also that we can have different approaches, but our end game and our understanding of the end game should be the same. We, together, are standing here today because we wholeheartedly oppose the proposal that Mayor Todd Glory has made for a 35-year lease at this property located at 3554 Kettner Boulevard. And I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why we oppose this lease that the mayor is making. First and foremost, I just want to underscore the fact. The fact is that we have a homelessness crisis in our city. That is something we will not be able to run away from, ignore, or state as a lie. It's a fact. We have a homeless crisis in our city. And we've got to do everything that we can to deal with the growing numbers of people living on our streets. In 2023, the Regional Task Force on the Homeless noted that the count found that there are over 5,171 unsheltered San Diegans, with over 5,000 individuals in shelters and in transitional housing. I am a kid who has a story that is not what other stories have been. I am an exception to the rule. I spent 13 years in the foster care system after losing both of my parents, and I went homeless when I emancipated the system and I was dropped off on B Street in downtown San Diego. I am compassionate to the people who are going homeless. Many of our homeless and runaway youth who are also disproportionately impacted in our communities. I personally feel compassionate toward those that are living on our streets because I know that my story of overcoming the odds and beating the outcomes that they said were projected for me is a reality that so many people who are living in right now on our streets. The task force count that we do every year only counts a portion of the reality, whether it is someone living in their car or whether it is someone living on the street. There are some people who will just never know what it feels like to be disadvantaged, to be abandoned, to be neglected and forgotten. I personally feel compassion for the people living on our streets. And I want to indicate that because the proposal that I'm making today is not in opposition to that fact. Some will argue that I am a NIMBY. Some will argue that I am against doing something for the homeless and our unsheltered community, because of the fact that I wholeheartedly oppose a lease agreement that will tie San Diegans' hands for decades and decades and decades to come. While I'm compassionate for our unsheltered community, I'm also compassionate for every taxpayer who pays taxes in this city. I'm also compassionate for the reality that so many people for decades and decades have felt also forgotten by the way that the city has mismanaged funds time after time after time again. Today, we gather here from different sides of the spectrum to say that we wholeheartedly oppose the mismanagement and the continued mismanagement of our money. And that is why on the front of this podium you will see that my interest is protecting taxpayers. I am not against the unsheltered, but I am for the management and the spending of money and city resources that the people have an investment in. That is why today I am announcing a counter proposal that I have made to Mayor Todd Gloria, to all city council members, to the city attorney, and finally to Chief Operating Officer Eric Dargan. My strategy has always been not to oppose something when I don't understand it, not to take a stance on something when I have not done the best of my ability to garner an understanding. That is why last week I became the first leader citywide to tour this site behind me. If you go to my social media pages, you can see that I actually was in the building. I want to thank Mayor Gloria, Eric Dargan, and the city staff for allowing me, someone that they probably knew was going to criticize this, to see the property, to understand their vision for this proposed site. I also explained to them during that tour, along with Doug Ham, who is the developer, that I wholeheartedly opposed this rigorous, egregious lease that was created by Mayor Todd Gloria's office. I let Mr. Dargan know that I wholeheartedly oppose this lease because, one, I feel that it is a misstatement of our value system. If we are saying that we want to end street homelessness, then we should be able to understand the importance of dealing with 35 years. How can we say we want to end street homelessness but have a lease that misstates our values? 35 years misstates our values about what we say we are doing. Number two, I let them know that I oppose this because I wholeheartedly feel that the lease in itself was created without not enough community input citywide. That is why today, due to the enormous forward commitment of the city's financial resources anticipated by this proposed lease, which threatens to impact generations of all 9 council districts in the future, I have issued this proposal after hearing from residents across our region. I am requesting that any consideration of this lease for a vote at City Council be suspended for at least 60 days, during which time the city would schedule community input charades or community input sessions in all 9 council districts. This has been done before. It was done when the city decided that they wanted to do this model to select the next police chief. It has been done on other occasions. What I am asking is very realistic, common sense, and builds the understanding among all 9 council districts that everyone should have input and an opportunity to be a part of the discussion. Not just the discussion of how this property should be used if the city was to lease it, but also the discussion about the lease negotiations themselves. We have a history in this city of mismanaging resources. Mismanaging resources that have been long misspent. And if you want to look at examples, one of them is 101 Ash Street. It was a disaster of an agreement that did not have input from residents. A lemon of a building that did not have the proper procedures and safety to protect the people that were even going into work on it. It tied our hands and it mismanaged millions of dollars. None of us should be okay with this continued epidemic, but all of us should be committed to making solution-based proposals that seeks to deal with the issue at hand. That is why I'm asking for a 60-day community gathering, community input period citywide that would seek to schedule these community charades in all 9 council districts in partnership with each council member and office. During these community gathering sessions, I am asking for 2 things that the city would do, which they are reviewing my memo today at the closed session meeting. I'm proposing, number 1, that this discussion pertaining to the lease itself would be a part of those community charades, meaning that the city would put what they would like to see pertaining to a lease, but the community would have direct input on every piece of the lease. Now, I know what people are going to say at the city, because I've had to deal with all sides of opposition, saying we don't like it, or saying we wholeheartedly support this building. There are people from all sides, but nobody should be saying that community constituents are not versed enough to read a lease. Everybody in this city should be able to read this lease. And that is what I am advocating for today. So, during this period of time in which I propose would be held from May 1st to July 1st, 2024, city staff would return to the city council to provide a presentation on the feedback gathered from all 9 council districts in order to provide a basis for the discussion as to, or if, when this lease should move forward for a vote under what terms. Now let's get into why I oppose this lease. I said it earlier, a term of 35 years is far beyond any lease comparable historically, and we know this based on our analysis. The regular lease that the city, the standard lease is 5 years. This is 30 years over that standard amount or time period. Number 1. Number 2, the proposed rental rate per square foot of $2.45 a month is substantially higher than the latest quarterly analysis from Cushman and Wakefield, which places the average rental rate at $1.50 per a square foot. Number 3, there is no first refusal to purchase the property mentioned in the terms of the lease that have been released to the public. Have we not seen this before? If the city has potential long-term aspirations for this site, the point should be considered that they should have first right to refusal. Finally, the landlord who I have met, Doug Ham, would normally provide an upfront tenant improvement allowance, but media has constantly accounted for the showing the city bearing the entire burden of the anticipated $18 million in tenant improvements. So it is because of these reasons that I wholeheartedly oppose this lease as is. I understand based on our analysis, that not on top of all of that, not enough community input has been garnered. And while I disagree, and while we disagree on some issues pertaining to whether we should be purchasing buildings or what we should be doing, we all agree that this lease is out of control and is a misstatement of our values and what we say in the city of San Diego that we are trying to do. Today, the city council is reviewing my proposal, the only counter proposal in the whole city. If folks are mad enough, they will bring forth a solution. They would have put something in to the city attorney and to the leadership that they would be reviewing. They are forced to review my proposal because of the lease being discussed in my proposal. And they are forced to review my proposal because I'm calling for all council districts to have an investment in the discussion about the lease itself. I am hoping that the council, the mayor, the chief operating officer adopts my proposal for this 60-day period, which would pause lease negotiations until all 9 council districts and the people of our city have a voice in this process. Homelessness is too important for all of us not to have a part of the discussion. And we all should be a part of this discussion. With that being said, I'm going to now introduce Dan Mullen, a Middletown resident who is supporting my proposal today. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Dan Mullen, live up the street here. I wanted to say and point out that this is not a Midtown issue. This is a citywide issue. So the folks in Kensington, if your councilman approves this and votes for it, you're going to pay for this. The folks in La Jolla, your councilman may support this, and then you're going to pay for it. Allied Gardens, Southeast San Diego, all of the city will pay for this. Rundown place here, a factory closed for 30 years, and this is the place that you will be paying for 35 years. It's a bad deal. It's another ash street. So let's put pressure on our councilman to look at this and look at the facts that Shane pointed out. It's a bad deal. It's Ash Street too. Thank you.
At this time, let us hear from Tricia Fillet, Old Town resident and member of the Old Town Safe and Clean Committee, who is supporting the proposal to pause lease negotiations and complete a 60-day community outreach strategy. Oh, yes, I'm going to read your... So she had some points that she wanted me to read. She's not speaking, but she wanted me to share some of these main points. So what she noted was that shelters are failing and encampments are rising. And essentially, there is a meth and fentanyl crisis that we all know is happening on our streets. Only over 1,000 people have died last year from meth and fentanyl. Over 1,000 people are living in encampments and addicted. Over 1,000 people are living in their cars. Over 1,000 people remain unhoused. And Tricia wanted to note that over 1,000 people are also plagued with mental instabilities that require serious lifelong care. So essentially, what she's saying is that we remember that our elected council members support the constituents, and the mayor should work with neighborhoods and communities as well. And essentially she's saying that they are leaving the public out of this process, and that's why she's supporting this proposal. I want to go now to Kate Callan, who's a District 3 resident and is supporting my proposal for a 60-day pausing of lease negotiations and community input citywide. Thank you, Kate.
Good morning. I live in the community of North Park in District 3. In my community, residents and small business owners have been told by elected officials, we don't want to hear your voice, we don't know what you're talking about, we know best, just let us do what we want to do. has led to the record of poor performance that shows that they don't know what to do. They don't know best. Shane talked about the history of bad deals in San Diego. If this proposed center, taken by itself, it's a bad deal just on its own, as an isolated deal. But if you look at the history of bad deals in San Diego, you see a pattern. Let's go through them. 101 Ash Street, Midway Rising, Tailgate Park, the Indoor Skydiving Center, the East Village Ritz-Carlton, and the Othello Maintenance Yard. The Othello Maintenance Yard was supposed to house city vehicles, but nobody bothered to measure the vehicles and the yard, and it turns out that the yard was too small for the vehicles, but they already bought it. It was already a done deal. There's a pattern here. In each of these deals, the mayor is desperate for a win, so he rushes into a contract. He strong arms the city council into going along with that contract, and then when the ink dries, we find out that the devil really is in the details. The money goes down the drain, the deal blows up, and we have yet another embarrassment. It's time to break that pattern. It's time for the people in communities like mine to stand up to City Hall and say, you're no good at your job, you better start listening to us, or there will be consequences. There haven't been consequences, there has to be consequences. I want to thank Shane for standing up and speaking up like this. We need more of that. I think that the momentum is turning, and I think that we are going to see a new day here in San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And I'll take questions in just a moment. Ed Moore is a Middletown resident, but before he speaks, I do want to say that I have citywide support from residents across the city in support of my proposal, and another resident from District 4, Southeastern San Diego, Brian Gooden.
Good morning. I am in full support of Shane's proposal to put the brakes on this agreement and to get the community involved. How ironic is it that when we are called to vote and to get these individuals in office, they all want our support. And now, when it comes to making a decision on some of the things that we voted them in for, they no longer want our involvement. So think about it.
Hi everybody, my name's Ed Moore. I am a 30-year resident of this neighborhood. Now right behind me, Vine Street. I am the frontline soldier. I'm the first house when you get there. Now I just retired last year after 30 years of working as a hardwood floor contractor in my beloved town. And over that time, I was lucky enough through my hard work and savings to also acquire 2 homes on either side of my house that are my sole retirement nest egg. And so I am the front line. I am the first 3 houses right up this street. No one from my city has talked to me, asked me for input. I read it in the UT like the rest of us did, and I'm scared to death. Mr. Ham stands to make a windfall profit of millions of dollars in this one deal. I could easily lose personally $1 million myself. No one has said thank you, nothing. I feel like I'm being trampled on. And Shane is right, we need a time to cool this off, to talk. Ironically, we're standing right next to an SDG&E power station that in the last 2 to 3 years was built. They sent notices out to all of us. They had 60 days of public input. They had a hearing. They did everything right. My city in this is, I just feel like they're ambushing me. And it's egregious. Lastly, I'll say, what are there? Almost 1.5 million of us, San Diego city residents, 3 million in the county. We need to bear this burden together. It's patently unfair to drop 1/10 of the entire city homeless population right here in one spot, and with no guarantees of any containment, the contagion in the neighborhood is going to be devastating. I feel the approach is completely wrong. Shane's absolutely right. We have to have compassion for our homeless brethren, but we've got to deal with them in small groups. You cannot group them together 1,000 at a time. It's wrong. We're going to fight this all the way. It's wrong on every level. Shane, I appreciate your support and what you've done to come out in front of this issue. Thank you, everybody.
I'll go ahead and take questions. Before I take questions, I just want to thank all of the speakers and the courageous people who understand that we don't all have to agree on strategy and approach, and who understood that this is not about opposing or supporting this proposal, but that it is a counter proposal. It asks for something that should be done every time a lease is discussed in the city, every time something is discussed pertaining to neighborhoods in this city. And what I'm sick and tired of seeing is I'm sick and tired of seeing this administration and the leaders that are sitting on the dais continue to railroad neighborhoods without giving people the input that is necessary. I believe that as a civil rights organizer of over a decade. I believe that as somebody who has spent relentless years understanding that that community input should be priority to everybody. And what I'm bringing forth is a logical, reasonable, rational, common sense proposal that I don't care what side of the damn spectrum you stand on. You should be supporting this concept, because this concept is solution-based. You can yell, scream all day, but I challenge the media to put a channeled perspective out there. Something that is actually realistic, something that can actually be done. The council can put the brakes on this thing today and tell the mayor we are going to go into a community gathering input citywide. The developer who I've talked to about this proposal, Douglas Ham, he is the landlord. He can put a pause on this lease negotiations for 60 days and allow for the communities across the city to have a say in the process of this. So with that being said, I'll take questions now from the media.
I understand really that 60 days was strategic. Why 60 days specifically? Why not 90 or more? What made you press on the 60 days?
Well, 60 days was about the time period that the city conducted its police chief community forums across all 9 council districts. Right. So I'm using the same model in the request here, and it essentially asked for that same time period, same approach that they did during the community police search.
Okay, great.
This building has been abandoned now for years and years. When you walked through it, what did you see in there?
So one of the things that I will say is that the plumbing and the piping, the foundational infrastructure that you would need to have showers and to have showers and bathrooms and sinks and kitchens, the piping is there, the infrastructure is there. I also understand, I don't know this, but asbestos is very low at the most. There's not a whole lot of asbestos in this building, because that was one of my first questions because of 101 Ash Street. But I will say that I was a little concerned about the space. When you get in there, you see that it's really not as big as it's been touted. It's large, but when I think about 1,000 unsheltered individuals in one space, I am a little concerned about that space being big enough. When you think about diseases potentially spreading, or some of the concerns that have been had around congregate shelter approaches in the past years. So I'm not opposed to a shelter. I'm a little bit concerned about the space that is inside. When I got in there, it was medium in my perspective, but not, I struggled to see 1,000 people inside of this building. Yeah. So tourism wasn't in our discussion.